All right, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining. This session is brought to you by Packback, and they're going to talk to you about their product and how they leverage AI to improve student and faculty engagement. So, guys, take it away.
So thank you everyone for joining us today. Like I said, like we said, we're going to talk about Packback. We have a special guest with us, so we're going to do some introductions here in a minute. We're going to talk a little bit about Packback's pedagogy as well as the goals that we have for using Packback. Do a little fun platform presentation. So we'll actually get into Packback and show you around, see what things look like. And then we're going to talk about what next steps. So if you're interested in finding out more or interested in using Packback, what those next steps look like. So without further ado, if you have any questions, we do have a large team with us today. So if you have any questions, feel free to pop them in the chat. If you would like to pose them to someone in particular, you can just go ahead and say that. If you want to talk to our special guest here, Kim, just say, hey, Kim, I have a question for you in the chat, and we'll have Kim give you an answer. Otherwise, we'll be monitoring the call. All right. See, I got a message. So I am Katie Horin. I am the experience manager for Stanley Community College right now. So that's the only school in North Carolina that I work with at the moment. We have several other schools in North Carolina that some of the other members of our team work with, but I'm specifically with Stanley at the moment. My other teammate in here is Ryan. He is an academic development representative for Packback. So he deals a lot with the front end of things. So he's definitely the first point of contact for everything and anything Packback. And then our special guest joining us is Kim Hammett. She is the program head of the criminal justice department over at Stanley. She and I have worked together for a little bit of time now, and she was excited to join us today. And Kim, I don't know if you wanted to add anything to that, but we're just excited to have you.
Well, thank you for having me.
And Ryan, would you care to add anything?
Yeah, so hi everybody. Like Katie mentioned, I work kind of with schools who don't know a lot about Packback. So happy to, get in contact with anybody after today's meeting to share more information or have a meeting with myself to kind of go over what we're doing in the North Carolina Community College system. But just super excited to work with you all and kind of hear Kim's experience here this afternoon.
Wonderful. Okay, so for those of you who have joined us, we like to do this as interactive as possible. Otherwise, we'll just be sitting here listening to us talk for 45 minutes. So we would love it if you would pop in the chat what you're currently teaching, or at least what your role is at your institution. And if you don't teach a class that has discussion, just tell us what you're excited about learning today. Otherwise, just let us know what discussion looks like in your classes so that we can make sure that we tailor our discussions best at you all. So if you want to pop that in the chat, I'll give you all just a second to do that. Great, General Biology Director of Supporting Faculty. Thank you, Becky and Ed. I've got a couple more people in here. The biologies are always a really, really fun one to see in Packback because the students we have the option to put like pictures and graphs and media and things. And the sciences classes always put a ton of really cool pictures in there. And so I learned something from all of the science communities. We have MS teams. Okay, all right. Teams, small groups, meetings, as discussions. Okay, thank you. Moodle admin, very CC. Thank you, Betty and Becky. All right. And I'll let everyone keep popping in the chat and letting us know what you do and where you're from. But let's go ahead and pop into a little bit of our presentation here today. I am going to put a form in the chat as well. And so this form can be used for filling out. If you would like to find a little bit more information after we go through our discussion today, feel free to fill this out and we can at least have some different options to get in touch with you. So within the Packback suite of tools, we are going to discuss 3 of those today. The first one being Packback Questions, which is our flagship tool. That's where we started. And that's what Kim mostly uses over at Stanley and most of our instructors. We have a brand new tool called Packback Deep Dives. Deep Dive serves as a digital writing and research assistant for students. So it's like having a writing center as the students are typing, but we're going to go into that a little bit more. And finally, we have Packback Instruct, which is a really cool feature that analyzes your community and provides at-scale reporting. So it just gives you really great information on the health of your community and how things are going. We are going to talk about those three today, discussing a little bit about Packback's pedagogical foundation. So why Packback exists and what we're passionate about. And so as you all know, getting students to reach higher level orders of thinking in Bloom's taxonomy, for example, is not always easy to achieve. Most ed tech tools, most of the tools that exist out here are going to be down here in those remember and understanding pieces of Bloom's taxonomy. But Packback software is helping you as the instructor or your instructors, depending on who you are. It's helping bring our students up here into these higher levels of thinking, those higher levels of Bloom's taxonomy. And we do that by having the students ask the questions. So we'll show you a little bit more about what that looks like. Our process is also heavily rooted in the self-determination theory. The whole goal of what we do is to try and inspire intrinsic motivation in our students. As I'm sure you are all very familiar, intrinsic motivation is completing an action for the love of the action itself as opposed to the reward. So we want our students to want to participate in Packback, not necessarily because they're getting credit, but because they enjoy going deeper into their subjects and having a lot of the foundations here. So the three things we have built into Packback are student choice, the mastery-based feedback, and connection to purpose. And those three things are what brings us into that self-determination, that intrinsic motivation. Student choice, by the students have the option to choose what interests them when they are writing their questions. So as they're posing their questions, they get to say what made them excited and what they were curious about during the week. So giving them that choice. It also creates that connection to purpose as a result. So they are saying, this was really cool to me. I want to dive deeper into this. So then they do their research, they go and they read case studies and they do everything and they really connect to the material that they're learning more so than they would if you were posing them a question and they had to answer it. And finally, the mastery-based feedback is really what sets Packback apart. This is our, what we like to call digital TA, what we like to call sometimes our writing center. This mastery-based feedback is live feedback given to our students as they're typing to help them become better question askers, better discussions, have better thoughts, have better processes as they are learning. So we're going to show you what all of that looks like. Before we pop into the platform though, I'm going to toss it over to Ryan. We have done this really cool study and I want him to tell us a little bit more about this study.
Yeah, thanks, Katie. So on top of the pedagogical foundation that she just mentioned, we also recently published this white paper study that we conducted over the past 3 years. We worked with 10 or more of our community college partners to really work this out. What we found at the end of the study is that students using Packback were more likely to receive A's, less likely to receive those D's, F's, and W's, which we know aids in those student retention rates. Additionally, over 93% of our professors who do try out Packback continue to use semester over semester. So what I'll do is I'll send this over to you all after the call here today. Dives a little bit more into detail if you're interested in diving into those factual points or the individual studies that we did. What we know is that every person conducts discussion boards in a different way. And what we found is that through Packback, students are actually more likely to engage deeper, write more quality posts, and it allows them, or you as the professor, to interact deeper with the content and ideas presented by your students, rather than that busy redlining and logistical work of the grading of the discussion forums that we see here today. So before we jump into one of Kim's communities here today, I wanted to pass it over to Kim to really just talk about her experience with Packback.
Well, it's been great. And I and my colleagues have talked about how we were just burned out with the old discussion forum platform. The traditional instructor throws out the prompt and then everybody replies to that prompt and then they got to reply to two other fellow students, that kind of thing. It just felt kind of dead. And when I saw the opportunity to check out Packback, I was very interested in that. And I love how it just flips things around. The students are asking questions about what they're interested in, not necessarily what the instructor is interested in. And the replies are so much more robust in Packback because used to be, everything was all about the initial post, and Packback certainly makes students think critically to come up with that big open-ended question, that they're curious about. And that's a good exercise alone for students, but the replies are a big piece too, because then they are able to hunt down questions that interest them and dig deeper. And I'm just seeing much better quality work and more engagement. And part of the reason I'm seeing better work is because of the artificial intelligence that's in Packback that kind of coaches the students as they're typing. It gives them a curiosity score, tells them if it's not high enough to keep digging a little further, prompts them to cite a source, makes comments about how they could write more clearly and things like that. So that when they do post their thread, you've got something better, to grade, and you're not focusing quite as much on, mechanical type things, but can more focus on, content, which is, what we're all about too. But anyway, I've just really enjoyed it, and I've loved how Packback has constantly made improvements ever since I've been using it. Initially, it wasn't integrated into Canvas, which is our LMS, in the gradebook, and now everything's completely integrated there, and that's fabulous and very user-friendly. It's easier to navigate back and forth between the gradebook in Packback and my gradebook in Canvas as well, and just continuous improvement all the time I'm seeing with Packback, and I really, really enjoy using it.
Some
Kim,
thank you, Kim.
oh, sorry, Ryan. So Kim, I know we've talked a little bit about sometimes when the students are participating in Packback, it improves their actual in-class participation as well. I was just hoping you might be able to speak a little bit about what engagement overall looks like now that you use Packback.
It does have a social media type feel to it. And I think students get to know each other, in Packback, and feel more comfortable posting in that versus the traditional forum platform. You can put in videos and all kinds of, images and things like that to really make it more interesting. And they just feel more comfortable, I think, with this platform than they do a regular discussion forum.
Yeah. Thank you, Kim. Thank you. Sorry, Ryan. Back to you.
Awesome. If you want to go ahead and give me the share screen ability, I'll go ahead and jump into a live community for everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's see. I'm not sure if you if that's not letting you in here, but if it's not, then I will just go ahead and share my screen. Are you able to share?
I think we're good to go here. So
Perfect.
can we all see that?
Yes, looks great.
Beautiful. So we'll go ahead and hop into a live community here. I actually grabbed one of Kim's previous communities for one of her CJ courses. As we can see here, I do have presenter mode on just to anonymize all the students' names and keep their data private here today. In your individual courses or in your faculty members' courses, they'll be able to see each individual student's names and their sections that they're enrolled in as well. So as we scroll down here, we like to say that we have a very social media-like platform. By doing so, the students are able to really feel at home in the platform, feel comfortable interacting in a way that they do with their peers outside of the educational environment. So they're able to really say how they feel and not really hold back on those feelings. On top of that, we like to say that we have a social media skin with an educational backbone built into it to really hammer that home. Now, if we were going to go ahead and hop into a student's post here, what we'll see the main difference on Packback compared to your regular LMS discussion board is that the student is going to come on and they're going to ask an open-ended question themselves based on that week's content. So whether that be the chapters that you went over this week, the slides, or the lecture that you just gave that afternoon, the student's really going to take all that information in, and rather than responding to a baseline question that every other student is going to respond to, it's really on the student to take the discussion into their own hands, think hard and long about what interests me the most. Then they're going to go ahead, they're going to ask an open-ended question based on that material, really give some description as to the topic that they're talking about, add their own personal opinions kind of in the middle there. And then I like to say the best cases or when you see right here, the post is ending with another question, that's really going to lead those responses that are going to happen down below to have a fruitful conversation back and forth, rather than that really common, hey, I agree with everything you just said, great post response that everybody in the room here is probably used to. Below, students able to cite the source from which they got that information as well, so they're able to, really show that credibility of the information that they're providing. Then as we scroll down here, I know somebody in the chat mentioned that they are a Moodle administrator. I use Moodle in my master's course right now, and I think one of the hardest things is having to click in and out of the different responses to see each individual student's response. Here on Packback, they're all going to be in one place right underneath that initial post. So right as you read that initial post, you're rolling right into the responses as you would with a normal conversation. Additionally, students are able to cite the source on that response itself. And I always like to point out the depth of the Packback responses just compared to what you're used to seeing in those discussion boards, is students both have to reach a minimum curiosity score, both on the initial post and their response to get full points that I'll touch on here in a minute. But it really pushes those students to go above and beyond and expand on their thoughts to make sure that they're achieving full points for the week's discussion board. So go ahead and hop back into the community here. If we were to ask a post as a student, there's this big red ask a question button here at the top. At any point in time, I do like to point out this set assignment instructions box here as well. Still gives you some autonomy over the discussion in which you're holding to tell the students, hey, here's what we talked about this week. Make sure that you're keeping your discussion topics towards X, Y, and Z, just to make sure that everybody's on the same base. So if we click ask a new question here, what we'll see on the right-hand side immediately is tips for writing these open-ended questions. We know this is a new concept for the students, so we just want to help them get over that hump as much as we can, really give them as many resources and materials as possible. So from there, I'm terrible at typing and talking, so not to waste anybody's time here today, I'll copy and paste a student question in this box. Now, if the student has a question such as what is deja vu or something that is close-ended, the AI is going to give them a big red X here that says, hey, that's close-ended. Go ahead and try again before you submit, or this post may be moderated. So if I go and grab their description text here, once the students have 20 words in that description text box, we're going to get live feedback from our AI on the back end to help the student in their writing. So what that looks like, the curiosity, credibility, communication, and convention aspects that we see here. All 4 of these are factored into the curiosity score. How I like to break that down is actually this convention tool here. This is your English writing, grammar, and spelling. We're actually just going to walk the students through improving their writing skill week after week, but we're not going to dock them points for not fulfilling this convention circle that we see here. We want to be equitable to all students and their writing skills as they enter your courses. So when we look at the actual score here itself, what's factored in is the curiosity, credibility, and communication. I like to break that down into layman's terms and say that the curiosity is the open-endedness of the question and the detail of the student's description. Credibility is, did you tell me where you got this information from? And then communication, I like to say, is if I'm your professor or if I'm one of your peers, if I open up this post and I read it from start to finish once, am I able to understand what your question is, what your point was, and how you want me to respond to it? If you can hit all 3 of those check boxes that I just mentioned, should be no reason on Packback that you're not receiving full points for that week's discussion. So I'll go and grab the student's source here just so everyone can see how that works. Students on Packback are twice as likely to cite the source for their information. The cite the source box here makes it really easy for them to drop that in, and then it's immediately addressed into this credibility score and fulfilling it for that student. So we'll go and check out some of these grammatical errors. This looks like it is the professor's or the writer's name, so we'll go ahead and dismiss that. And then I'll address the score range that we see here. Right now, we're looking at a 71 to 100 curiosity score range. You as the professor are going to set a minimum curiosity score that once the students reach above, they'll receive full points. If they are below that minimum curiosity score, they'll receive half points for that post. How I like to break this down, on average, the minimum curiosity score is between a 50 to 60. I believe Kim's communities are set at about a 60 right now. So how I like to look at that is we have 0 to 31, 31 to 70, and then the 71 to 100. I always like to say, I hope no student is sitting in that 0 to 31 when they're trying to submit their post. So let's focus on those latter two. If they're sitting in 31 to 70, they're truly gambling on if they're going to receive full points for that discussion post when they hit submit post. They could be at a 35, they could be at a 50, or they could be above that threshold at a 70. I like to say if the student takes in the feedback from the AI on the right-hand side there, makes those adjustments and takes 5 to 10 extra minutes of their time to make the post more personable and gets into the 71 to 100, when they hit submit post, they're ensuring full points on their discussion post for that week, and there's no worrying about what that grade is going to be at the end of the week in the grade book. So go ahead and hop back into the live community here, unless anybody wanted to come off mute with any specific questions I might be able to answer. Then in terms of feedback here, options drop-down bar under each student's post, you can click give feedback here. We're able to do so in the form of public praise or private coaching. Private coaching is a one-to-one email to that student saying, hey, here's how you could edit this post to make it more effective in the future and what to keep in mind on those future posts so this post or your posts in the future aren't getting coached week after week. As well, from here, we're able to manually moderate the post. Professors can do that from here within the coaching. They can do it within that options drop-down bar. As well, the AI is going to auto-moderate based on plagiarism, profane and abuse language, class logistics such as when is the test, or short length of the post. Any of those things happen, whether it's you or the AI moderating the post, the student will get this coaching email. The post is removed from the feed, and they'll actually have until the deadline to resubmit their post for full credit and really go in and change those problems that they had with the initial post. On the flip side, we have what's called public praise. So this is viewable underneath that student's post between the post and the responses. So all students will be able to see that praise and effectively put it into their own work. So what the questions you're able to answer here are, why is this post important for the class to care about? And what that student specifically did well that others should keep in mind. From here as well, we're able to pin the post to the top of the feed. Just make sure it's the first thing that everybody sees when they log on for that week, or you can feature the post. What featuring does, it adds it to a weekly digest that gets sent out at the end of the week, kind of a full wrap up for what happened within that discussion that week, just to keep the students on top of that information. Now we know that professors and faculty, strong time spends are not, the biggest value to y'all. So what we're going to do here is the AI is actually going to step in and it's going to auto feature 4 to 5 posts each week if you don't have the time to do so as well, just to save you that time on your end. Then to touch a little bit on the gradebook, as Kim mentioned, fully integratable into your LMS system there on campus. What happens is once that deadline passes, whether it be 11 p.m. or 11:59 p.m. on Sunday or Saturday, once that deadline passes, the grades that we see here will get passed back into that LMS gradebook for you without you having to do any additional work. The grades, grade points for the questions as well as the responses are totally customizable for you all, as well as the number of questions and the number of responses that you're asking for. Now, if you ever disagree with the score that the AI has given a student, this pencil right here, you can click it, put the grade you believe the student deserves in there, and click override. That grade will also jump right back into your LMS gradebook for you as well once the deadline passes. So we'll go ahead here, unless there's any questions I could answer, I'll hop back into my slides. So on top of the questions platform, we have the instruct tool that Katie mentioned earlier that comes with a few tools. First off is match and message. This is just individual one-to-one emails to the students off specific criteria. So say you have 20 students who haven't responded to the discussion that week, you're able to click students who haven't participated, type up one email and hit send. What it's going to do is send 20 individual emails to those students off one click, just to make that experience a little bit more personable for you and your students. Then with that, we have what's called discussion polls, both in class and homework polls. In class polls is probably what you guys are all used to. It's not going to be worth points, more of an attendance checker just to kind of gauge the experience of the class and where everybody's at. I think homework polls are the most interesting aspect of the discussion polls that we offer here. These are going to count as a response for the student for the week. So it's going to count 4 points for them. And you'll be able to ask a question to the students, give them options, whether that be A, B, C, or D for them to choose from. And then once they choose that option, they don't just get to choose A, B, C, or D and move on. They actually have to give you a detailed description as to why they chose that answer. So where I see this really fitting into classes is you have that Monday lecture and then you have that Wednesday lecture coming up, but you really want to see where the students are at with that information throughout the week. You throw a discussion poll up after Monday's lecture, have the students fill it out, answer and give that description. Then by the time that you're planning for that Wednesday lecture going into it, you have a plethora of feedback from your students on what they understood, what they didn't, and how you should really tailor that lecture to be most effective to their learning outcomes that week. As well, I think this really offers the professor an ability to still have some autonomy over the questions being asked to the class. You can still come in and ask that weekly discussion board question that you plan to ask the students in your normal LMS discussion right now, and still make it worth points while still giving the students the ability to have autonomy over the discussion themselves with their own questions. So then,
and then Ryan, before you jump forward, there was a question in the chat for Kim. Oh, perfect. Kim just got to it. Thanks, Kim.
Sure.
awesome. So then going into, before Katie does a demonstration of our deep dives product that we just rolled out here this August, I wanted to give you guys a brief overview. So for students, deep dives is going to teach them how to be better researchers and better writers by giving them a digital writing coach that gives real-time suggestions on structure, flow, mechanics, formatting, and more. With this digital research assistant, it's also going to give them feedback on source credibility, recommended sources, and citation formatting per your instructor specific rubric as well. For the professor then, Deep Dives is going to help you grade long form writing much faster, freeing you to choose the best assignment for the learning goals without being constrained by grading time and focusing on subject specific feedback rather than writing mechanics and that red pen grading that I mentioned earlier. So go ahead and pass it over to Katie to walk you guys through a live deep dive community.
Yeah, absolutely. So I am going to reshare my screen right here. I am super excited about Packback Deep Dives. Like Ryan just said, we just released this, so this is brand spanking new, hot off the press. So I'm going to give you a little walk around the platform. So Deep Dive gives essentially every single student access to the Writing Center 100% of the time they are typing. So it's giving them live feedback 24/7 on the mechanics, structure, flow, research quality, and formatting in their draft. So as they're typing, they're going to be getting that full platform experience every single time. Students can edit, they can revise their work, get feedback, and it's going to directly align with the AI. So when the actual paper comes to you as the instructor, it's like they've been to the Writing Center to help them with that paper. So our ideal scenario is 100% of our students have 100% of their mechanical issues worked out before you even see a paper, which means that you get to focus on nothing other than their content, which is what you are the experts in. So I'm going to open up the platform here to give you a really good idea of what this looks like. So let's hop into Packback. One of the fabulous things about Packback Deep Dives is that it lives within your existing community. So if you're already using the discussion platform, all you have to do is encourage your students or invite them to scroll down on the side here and click on Packback Deep Dive. It means it has that same single sign-on experience. Once we have that integrated into your LMS, like at Stanley, we have it in their Canvas cells. The students click on that Packback link. They just scroll down here to Packback Deep Dive. At this point, they can see every single paper that is current, and they can see any papers that have already expired. The only thing they cannot see are upcoming assignments. That's for you and your personal use. When the students come in here, they're going to say, okay, I have this great current assignment. They can see the title of the paper. You write a very small description so that they know, okay, this is the one that I'm supposed to be working on, due date, if they've submitted it or not. And this is just for you so that you know how many submissions you have. very small. This is just a very little bit of a brief intro for the students on what the requirements are. But let's actually go in here and flesh this out a little bit. This is what the full draft, if you will, this is what the full looks like. We're going to see that title again. We're going to see that small little summary that you provided. But if we scroll down, we're going to have the full paper here. And so I actually really like this one right here. So this is the deep dive. What should the campus facility staff do to assess and promote biodiversity on the MU campus? And as you can see, we have a full draft here. The professor has provided recommended resources. So this is a great place if you want to send your students to a particular site, or if you want them to use this as a jump off for their research, you can add all sorts of citations here for them. You can also add these fabulous things called questions to answer in this deep dive. The reason I say they're fabulous is because right now we're about to unleash what we call smart highlighting. So let's say you give your students, I think 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 questions. This instructor has given them 5 questions to answer while doing their paper. Once the student actually submits the paper, our AI, so our technology is going to review their paper, and it is going to highlight in their paper where they have answered that question. So when you come in to read their paper and to give it a grade, ideally, like we said, that student has taken their paper to the Writing Center, AKA the Packback Writing Center, and grammar and mechanics is 100% worked out on our end. Now you get to open up that paper and just see where they have answered these questions. So it gives you a really fabulous little look into how their paper is, if they did what you've asked them to do, and how you plan on grading them. So hopefully this will take away half the amount of time, if not more than that, of the time that you spend actually grading students' papers. This is the very basic rubric. So this is the summary rubric for the students so that they know what the expectations are. If they would like to see the full rubric, they can click see full rubric, or they can come up here and click on this rubric status right here. You decide everything here. You decide how many points you would like content and ideas to be worth. You put in here what a beginning paper, developing, accomplished, and exemplary paper looks like. This is, word count, not a problem. Come in here and write exactly what you're expecting from your students. Below that is where you would see your requirements that you have set up. You can make word count and depth worth 0 points. You can make word count and depth worth 100 points. You decide exactly how many points you'd like these things to be worth. You decide the actual details. So you can say, I want it to be between 1,000 and 2,000 words, 10,000 and 20,000 words, whatever's going to fit this paper of yours. Grammar and mechanics, flow and structure, and research and quality. So this paper is specifically asking for 3 sources, and you also decide which citation you would like to use, whether you'd like to use APA, MLA, and there will be some others coming as we keep building out, and there's a need for other citations. We're going to constantly be building out those citations, so your options are limitless. At this point, the students would actually start their deep dive. Yes, the case is mentioned that Chicago style is in the works because that one tends to be a very popular one. So the students come in here and they actually can work on their research notes. Research notes is private to them. So this is a space for them to collect their thoughts before they start writing their paper. This is a bit of an example here. So the students can put in a citation. They can put in a little bit of notes so that they know why they put that in there or where they'd like to use it in their paper. But the really cool thing here is that as the students create their citations, we are telling them whether or not this is a credible or a not credible citation. We all know every semester we get 10 students who use Wikipedia as their #1 citation. And we are going to tell them that we do not think that that is a good idea and that perhaps they should look for something a little bit more credible and why. So if we click into the actual citation, it will tell us why we think it's potentially credible and why we think they should consider citing something else. Again, this is the Writing Center. We're not doing it for them. We're just going to be giving them some helpful hints and tips on how to be a little bit more successful. Once the students have finished writing up their research notes, they can move in here and actually start writing their draft. You can have these students you can say, we would like certain titles. We would like you to have it formatted a certain way. Eventually, we're going to have all sorts of different options on how you can actually structure papers. But right now, we just have the students write their papers. This is a running paper, so there are no page breaks. So this is almost like a Google Sheet or something where it's constantly being saved. It's a running paper. So we do everything by word count as opposed to pages. And so that's something that you and I would sit down together, or you and whoever your experience manager would sit down together and make sure that your paper is set up the way that you want it to be set up. Oh, that. If we take a look over here, we can see this digital writing assistant. The same thing we have in Packback Questions, we have in Packback Deep Dive, but it is so much more beefy. It's way more robust. In Packback Questions, we're looking for nice discussion, fancy discussion. But in Packback Deep Dive, we're looking for technical papers. We're looking for things to be very formal and have a little bit more oomph to them. So here we've beefed up the Writing Center quite a bit. We have these grammar issues. The students can review their grammar issues. But the best part, I think, is we have our categories. And again, Writing Center here. We're not telling them what to do, but we're telling them how they can improve. We're giving them suggestions. We're telling them where they're doing excellent. We have the same little yellow dots here saying, this is a little hard for people to read. We're giving them their Flesch Kincaid score, and that we're saying, click this link to find a little bit more about what that means and how you can improve. Students can ignore us, but if you have graded for flow and structure, a suggestion being there means they're going to be losing points. So they know that they're always trying to get over here to nothing but praises and nothing but check marks. Same thing down here. We've got appropriate use of formatting for their MLA citations. We're finding out that they have some grammar, so they should take a look at that or they're going to lose points. But great job of using active voice in your writing, et cetera, et cetera. So as the students are typing away, they're going to be getting this feedback. When it comes to word count and depth, we can actually block submissions that do not fit that word count. How many times have you asked the students, please do not write more than 2 pages, and they turn in a paper with 6 pages? Well, now they can't. If you turn that on, they have to stick to that word count. You do not have to read a 6,000-page paper anymore. So we have all sorts of different options here for you to provide to your students. And Ed, yes, I see your question. Yes, this is obviously checking for plagiarism. We have both an internal and external plagiarism checker. So the students are being checked against themselves. So that way the students cannot copy off of each other. And we do have, and albeit it's a very new, very young external plagiarism checker. We are constantly building that up. We do have that external plagiarism check. We also have the option to download every single paper that has been submitted, and you can use that to then just upload it into like a Turnitin or whatever you'd like to do. So if you think that our software is a little too much in its infancy, we have made it very easy for you to go to what you're comfortable with. Any questions before I move on to the instructor side of things? This is very much so the student side. And I know Ed, you asked your question, but if anybody else wants to pop in the chat or come off mute. Great, we'll go with no questions. Okay, so I'm going to show what the instructor side looks like. So once the students have submitted their draft, woohoo, you have some papers and you're going to start taking a look. You'll just simply come to your submissions tab here and you'll see when the students submitted their work, if it was on time. We have a few late papers here as well. You can not allow late submissions or you can allow late submissions, up to you again, it's personal preference. So if we take a look at what it's like to grade a paper, simply come into this grade submissions here. The student has provided their paper. You get a little bit of a rough estimate or a little rough background on their paper. Right now, we know it met the words, it met the citations, and it was on time. Great. Then we scroll down a little bit to this instructor assessment. These are where Packback is providing you a score. So we said that this student should have received a 10 out of 10 for word count and depth, and you can click in here and see why. Same thing for all of these pieces. So flow and structure, let's take a look and see why we might not have given them the full points here. So we said that they had quite a few hedge words. So that's not something that we want to see. So hedge words are something that might not be important to you, but they may be something that you say, yeah, this is a little hard to read. I totally agree with this score. So ease of reading as well, you can go, yeah, I actually totally agree. Once you kind of get familiar with the way that we grade papers, you might not even have to look in here and click CY anymore. You might just go like, oh, totally agree, 4 out of 5. So you can kind of skip this section once you're pretty comfortable, as long as you completely agree with our system over here. You get to focus right here on content and ideas. This is what we want you focusing on. So when we have the smart highlighting released, which is not quite released yet, but it will be in very momentarily, we'll be able to come in here and you'll be able to see very quickly and very easily where the student answered the questions you asked them to answer. And if that's all you want to read, you have the option to just read those and give the students their content and idea score. Otherwise, you could read their entire paper, come and say, this was a 3 out of 4. I'm going to go ahead and give this 15 points, and I'm going to tell you why I gave it 15 points. You would click submit assessment, and at that point, the paper would be fully graded. and you would be able to see their works cited in here. And then once you have graded their paper, you can also see where the feedback is. So the students have the option to come in here and see what your feedback to them was. So it's just simple as that. You come through here, you grade the papers. Pretty soon here, we'll have the same full grade integration that we have with Packback questions. So the grades are just going to show up in your grade book after you have graded them. Right now, we are still doing a manual grade upload, but that'll only be for one more semester, and then we will be able to do that automatic grade. Any questions about Packback deep dive? Yes, and the ability to provide line-by-line feedback. Yes, so right now we do not have that line-by-line feedback. And another one that's coming up this semester, as upcoming semester, is also peer review. So we have a lot of options as well for students to be able to have interactions between each other and some deeper interactions between you and their paper as well. So like I said, deep dives, it's still in its infancy. So as we have a need for things, we're building them. And Kim mentioned earlier that we are very adaptable. So as the professors, as you as instructors come to us with your desires, we do everything we can to make them happen. Any other deep dive questions? Okay, so I'm going to pop through, since we did all of this in the deep dive over here. I'm just going to give you a little background about how all of these things play together. So this is a typical usage for an instructor who is using Packback questions and Packback deep dive, or one of the standalone products, either just Packback questions or just Packback deep dive. We see that instructors, we like to see about a 15 to 25% grade allocation for Packback questions. It's enough that the students are really motivated to do it, but not so much that it's almost scary. The average frequency that we have a deadline is once a week, but it is completely customizable. Kim can speak to this, but she does 4 a semester. And you know, at Stanley, they do about 8 to 10 week classes. So she does about 4 a semester, so it ends up being just about 1 every other week. We do recommend that you ask 1 question and respond to 2 of your peers, but you can set that to be whatever you would like it to be. And the instructors set their own minimum curiosity score. That's usually in combination with a meeting with your experience manager. We talk about your course goals, we go over what's important to you, and then we can suggest what might be a good curiosity score for you to begin with if you're uncomfortable making that decision on your own right up front. For Packback deep dives, it's about 20 to 40%. These are written papers. There's a lot more at stake than simply a discussion platform. Most instructors do about 2 to 5 deep dives a semester. Kim's using it for 1 this semester, just for that final paper of the year. So if you want to just use it for 1, you're absolutely welcome to do that. And people do it for all sorts of different things. Like Kim is using it, and Kim, you might want to speak to what you're using it for, but we have instructors who simply ask their students to provide their notes at the end of the week, so that it's something that they can see, make sure that they're typed up, make sure that everything makes sense and that they're kind of on track. So Kim, you want to tell us a little bit about your deep dive assignment?
Yeah, it's just a final research paper, and I'm curious to see how it goes. I think it's going to help them make sure that they meet all the requirements better. I've tried a checklist in the past. That hasn't seemed to help, and I'm hoping that this really will, especially when the highlighting thing kicks in, which this paper's not due until December, so that probably will kick in before then, and that'll probably help with that as well. But yeah, I'm just hoping that real-time guidance through them, I'm just going to have a much better product to look at by the time they go through the deep dive.
Yeah, and that's really big, is giving professors a little bit more of a clean, polished product so that you can enjoy what you're reading instead of getting frustrated by all of the grammar and mechanics errors that are in there. And finally, Packback Instruct, if you choose to use Packback Instruct as well, it's 1 action a week. I mean, you do what you would like to do. You can send a match and message email to everyone who has not participated, or send a shout out email to everyone who's on the leaderboard, which is the top 10 in the class. You can review your course stats, discussion polls. You know, Ryan went through all of those different options. So just Packback Instruct just gives you the ability to handle classes a little bit easier. And I'm gonna just touch a little bit on our partners. So right now, this is just a few of our partners. We are currently in over 450 institutions nationwide. So it is no small feat. We also, like we've said, integrate fully into your LMS system. So, at Stanley, we use Canvas, and it's something that we work directly with the institutional partners to make sure that that happens. We are fully FERPA compliant, so you don't have to worry about that at all. And we do provide full service. And I know I talk to Kim. Kim, what do I talk to you? Once a week? I mean, Kim is a special case. We work very hand in hand. She helps us with so many things. But our support is, we've heard, unlike anyone else's support. So we try to be as available as we possibly can to our institutions. Have you worked with Open? Yes, we have worked with Moodle. I do not personally work with Moodle, but Ryan, didn't you say, or was it Chase that came in and said that we work with Moodle already?
I believe we have integration into Moodle. I've never
Definitely.
personally worked with it in Moodle, but yeah, I believe we have it.
Yeah, we definitely have full integration into Moodle. Personally, I have not done anything with Moodle, but your experience manager would be assigned to you based on their experience. Any other questions about any of our partnerships, our service, our, how we work before we kind of talk about next steps? Okay. All right, so Ryan, I'm going to turn it back over to you to kind of talk about what Packback looks like in North Carolina.
Yeah, so here's just a little bit of background of our current usage across North Carolina. We currently have worked with over 90,000 students and 330 professors across all different types of institutions, from community colleges to higher ed four-year universities to even the K-12 space over the past year and a half here. We've been in the state since about 2018. And then as well, Packback Deep Dives, as Katie mentioned, completely works with Turnitin, so fully integratable there and fully integratable LTI integration. Then wanted to go ahead and pass it over to Kim a little bit to touch on how Stanley has funded their usage of Packback.
Yeah, right now we're only using it in the CTE programs because that's what Perkins is all about. So we obtained a Perkins grant to fund it here at Stanley so that there was no expense to the students, and it's totally free to them.
Awesome, thanks, Kim. And then Katie, if you want to hop to the next slide, we can talk a little bit about next steps here. Awesome, thank you. So today would be the first step, just kind of getting an idea of what Packback is, seeing if it aligns with your course or departmental goals there on campus. Next step, I'll have Chase go ahead and throw that form back into the chat. Just if anybody wants to fill that out, Chase and I will be in contact throughout the rest of the week here to get in touch regarding next steps, whether that be an individual demo with yourself or just a meeting to talk about goals a little bit more in detail, or we're happy to set up departmental or small group demonstrations to really get in front of your faculty and see how many people would be interested in using it. And then Katie, if you want to go to the next slide with our contact info. So then there is our contact information. Feel free to give us a call or shoot us over an email. We'll be happy to respond. But like I mentioned, we'll also be in contact via email through those form submissions throughout the rest of this week here to schedule those over the next few weeks. Katie, do you have anything else you wanted to add here at the end?
Yeah, and Teresa just asked a fabulous question about being ADA compliant. So Ryan touched briefly on how we Packback take ADA, we take inclusivity very seriously. So we have a ton of resources, and the experience manager, myself or whoever be working with your institution, we have so many resources available to help you explain to your students how to use Packback. So whatever you need, we have everything you need. So this is not something that you need to do by yourself either. We have a full team here to help you make sure that Packback is going to be as effective for your students as possible. And if you have any questions, please email us, fill out that form. We'd love to talk about Packback. I don't know if you have picked on that from our experience today, but we're all very passionate about what we do. So you're not bothering us at all if you would like to just have another chat, deeper conversation about Packback.
Open to answering any questions here at the end too. If anyone wants to hop off mute, it looks like we have a few minutes here at the end.
Yeah, pop off mute. Kim, anything you wanted to add too?
Yeah, I'll add one more thing, especially in the beginning when we first started using it. Our CAO was wanting feedback on what the students thought about it. So in the reflection forum, that I have in each of my classes. One specific bullet would be, what did you think about Packback? Or did you enjoy Packback? Something along those lines. And many students would chime in and say, this was so much better than the way I used to do discussion forums. It's so much more interesting. It made me think harder. It made me think more critically. I even this past summer, we started giving out challenge coins to our graduates, and I had some people that couldn't make it to graduation, and I had a detective with the Charlotte Mecklenburg Police Department. I went to hand deliver it to him because we were kind of using it as a social media thing too, promoting our CJ program. And we were just chit chatting. And even though it had been like a semester since he had taken any classes, he said, I just wanted to say, he said, what was that thing? What was it called that we were doing the discussions in? Packs? I said, Packback. He said, yeah. He said, I just wanted to tell you, I am so glad y'all started using that. He said, I really enjoyed digging into that. Discussion forums were kind of boring before. And he said, I just loved it and look forward to it every week.
Love hearing that. Thank you, Kim.
Certainly.
Anybody have any questions?
Yes, we have a quiet group.
Oh, I know. We just answered every single question. It just was back out of our presentation, I guess.
Mhm.
We do plan to send a follow-up email. It'll be coming from either Chase or Ryan, but just to say thank you for attending today and provide any other contact information so that you know how to get in touch with us. So if you're just uncomfortable coming off mute, you can always pop us back on the email and let us know what your questions are.
I'll say one final thing too is the tech support and response from anybody at Packback has been wonderful. Anytime I had a question about something, it was in no time that I got an answer. And then again, I'll just mention the continual improvement, just the tweaks, based on feedback. Hey, it would be really nice if y'all could do this. And before you know it, that feature's there. And they're very responsive and open to change and improvement. And I love too the flexibility that faculty have. You can tweak it and make it anything you want. If you want it just a very informal type blog thing and aren't that concerned about, APA formatting and things like that, you can run it that way. I'm the other end. After deadline A passes, I pop in, send coaching feedback that I also copy and paste into the Canvas grade book. So they got it in two places just to say, great start, but here's how you need to improve it before deadline B rolls around, and they have the opportunity to go make edits so that students, just aren't smacked with a bad grade, and they've got a chance to fix it, before the second deadline rolls around. And that works really well. And the students seem to appreciate that and be more engaged with it too.
Yeah, that is for sure. Well, we'll hang back, and if anybody has any other questions for just a couple more minutes, but thank you all for coming and popping in today.
Yes, and thank you to the entire group, Katie and Kim and Ryan and Chase. I appreciate you joining in, and I appreciate all of our participants joining in today and the past couple of days. And we've got one more session this afternoon that I hope everyone will join. So thanks again, everyone.